aircraft have been used for speedy deliveries since the very earliest days of aviation.
But how did rickety old biplanes lead to the ultimate airlifter, a gigantic cargo plane that can carry 250 tons?
These days, we're used to walking around supermarkets picking up fruit and veg from all over the world. I've got mangoes from Mexico, bananas from the West Indies, and green beans from Kenya. And guess what? They all arrived here by plane. Shall I have one of these? No, I've got one, I think, at home in the fridge.
Modern cargo planes bring us exotic produce from all around the world. But 100 years ago, the weekly shop was less exciting. Life was tough, but one thing you could do was write and tell your Auntie Jane in Tibet how bad things were. And thanks to one man, there was a chance your letter would get there quickly. Claude Graham White, an entrepreneurial chap who became one of the first pilots to carry airmail. It was 1910, less than a decade after the Wright brothers' first flight, and forward-thinking Claude realized that people would pay to send their mail more quickly. Postcards were sixpence halfpenny, letters cost double.
Little did Claude realise, but he created the first cargo plane. Not much of a cargo, it has to be said. His small biplane had just enough power to take his own weight and a few bags of mail.
This is for Auntie Jane. Here we go. Claude was onto something. If planes could be built with more power, people might pay to send anything, if it could get there quicker.
Over the next 20 years, planes did indeed get more and more powerful, and air cargo really took off.
The recently invented radial engine had increased the power-to-weight ratio of aircraft, enabling them to carry much greater loads. And by the 1930s, airmail services were flying all around the world. Then, in 1935, these engines and a host of other technical advances all came together on one plane. The Douglas DC-3. And although nobody knew it at the time, it would become a landmark in the history of aviation.
This has to be one of my favourite aircraft of all time. Powerful, reliable, gorgeous to look at, a stunning piece of engineering and design that blew away every other aircraft of its era.
The DC-3 is a legendary cargo plane, although it actually began its life carrying passengers. It was one of the world's first luxury airliners and could carry 21 people non-stop across America.
Yes, well worth the $288 return ticket price.
But by 1939, the outbreak of war put paid to civilian airliners. But it wasn't the end of the story for the DC-3. The military had plans for it.
They realised that if they turfed out the VIPs and ripped out the soft upholstery, they'd have 2 tons of lifting power.
And so the Rolls-Royce of the air became a transport plane. In America, they called it the C-47 Skytrain, and in Britain, the Dakota.
This is a takeoff roll. Oh, yes.
I'm thrilled to be taking a flight in a Dakota, and this particular one is nowadays used as a radar plane.
We're up! We're up! Wow! I've got to actually hear the engines for myself.
That gorgeous sound is two 1,200 horsepower Pratt & Whitney Twin Wasp radial engines. Powerful, reliable, and giving a cruising speed of 160 miles an hour. I mean, this is just music. You do not need an in-flight stereo system when you've got these two. Absolutely brilliant. The DC-3's fantastic combination of power, speed and range made it incredibly useful during World War II. It transported troops, towed gliders, and in the D-Day landings, it was a parachute dropship. But the finest hour for the DC-3 came after the war. In 1948, Berlin was cut off from the West by the Soviets. The only way in was by air, so a massive aid operation was mounted to keep the city alive. Nearly 280,000 flights were made, many by DC-3s. What began as a posh airliner for VIPs ended up as a flying delivery wagon, saving thousands of lives. But as a heavy lifter, its days were numbered. The 1950s saw the emergence of aircraft with greater range and a massive increase in lifting power. And that was thanks to a brand new technology. Turboprops. Don't be fooled by the propellers on the plane behind me. They're jet-powered. And each one of those engines is nearly 4 times more powerful than a piston engine on a DC-3. Meet the Lockheed C-130 Hercules, the modern military equivalent of the DC-3. It's far larger though, and its massive engines give it the power to lift about 20 tons. This is a semi-naked Allison T56 turboprop engine. 4 of these are the power behind the Hercules. They have a much better power-to-weight ratio than older engines. Instead of pistons and cylinders, they use jet technology. A powerful air turbine that spins extremely quickly with hardly any moving parts. By combining advantages from jets and propellers, they make the Hercules really versatile. The Hercules first served in Vietnam, and it has been involved in every major conflict since. Amazingly, it's still in service today. The Hercules takes the go-anywhere, do-anything concept sky high. And today we're going to prove it by delivering a Land Rover and trailer from A, RAF Lyneham, to B, the barracks at South Cerney in Gloucestershire in record time. Inside the aircraft, there's nearly 130 cubic meters of space, enough to take 92 troops or a variety of military vehicles. Packaged up inside a special transport frame is our Land Rover, ready for loading. And to shrink the delivery time, the Hercules has a great trick up its sleeve. The Land Rover's nearly loaded up now, and in a couple of hours' time, it's going to be unloaded. But the Hercules isn't going to land first. We're just going to chuck it out the back. Much easier. Yes, even when it's impossible to land, the Hercules can still deliver. With an airdrop. I'm in the cockpit of the Hercules. Yes! The Land Rover is locked down in the back there. We're about to fly to the DZ, the drop zone. It's about a 30-minute flight to South Cerney. Prepare for takeoff.
Oscar 670, ready for departure.
670, clear takeoff, surface wind 300, 15 knots.
Feel the raw power of those turboprops. Excellent. Well, that was just one of the most exciting moments, definitely, of my life. It really was. When we were taking off there, you could feel presumably crosswinds blowing us over to the left a little bit. Absolutely magnificent feeling. And seeing the ground move away from us and seeing the fields down there at the moment, absolutely spectacular. We're flying at 250 feet, a typical low-level tactical altitude for the Hercules.
We're involved in some pretty tasty flying now, and we're getting at some pretty sexy angles to the ground. Absolutely magnificent for a big old bird like this one.
Meanwhile, down on the ground, the Army Air Dispatch crew await their delivery. In just 3 minutes' time, a Land Rover will be plummeting towards their heads. But will it land in one piece? The C-130 Hercules can deliver a heavy cargo extremely rapidly. Today, the cargo is a Land Rover, and I'm about to watch this crew throw it out the back.
And the load's in position down the back. Okay, if you start your turn in now, then we're about, going to be about 4 miles now. Okay. Okay, got these in area. 2 minutes, 2 minutes, couple 2 minutes.
2 minutes to go. The back doors are open. Incredibly exciting. Very soon that Land Rover and trailer is going to shoot out the back at very high speed. Just about holding on to me breakfast.
The drop zone is in sight now, about 3 miles away.
I've got 679, this is you are clear live drop, over.
Clear live 670.
Good call, that's good speed.
30 seconds now until the Land Rover shoots out of the back of the Hercules. Incredibly exciting. 5 seconds to go.
Action stations.
Now that was amazingly fast. It took less than 2 seconds to leave the aircraft. First, a small parachute called a drogue is released. That pulls out the main chute, which deploys and drags out the Land Rover. Then a third parachute opens to control the drop.
Good speed.
Wow, absolutely amazing.
The crew aimed to deliver with an accuracy of within 200 meters. And today, they're bang on target.
Well, what a magnificent thrill and privilege to be at the back end of this venerable old sky truck when it's doing its thing. Magic!
For the military, getting the right piece of kit exactly where it's needed as quickly as this really can be a matter of life or death. The Hercules makes it possible.
Well, the good news is the Landy's still in one piece. I wonder, is it going spare?
The Hercules is a strong, rugged aeroplane that really can deliver. But it was a plane with far less of a tough guy image that helped get NASA to the moon. 4, 3, 2, 2, 1. Super Guppies are gold.
This has to be one of the strangest aircraft in the history of aircraft. Absolutely extraordinary. And what is even more weird is that it's here in Leicestershire.
It might look like a pregnant fish, but without the bizarre Super Guppy, the Americans may not have beaten the Russians to the moon. It was the 1960s, and to construct their moon rockets, NASA had to get huge parts from California to Florida as quickly as possible.
Going by road was far too slow, and there wasn't a plane big enough to transport the giant rocket stages. So, a whole new plane had to be developed especially for the job. The Super Guppy.
Money was poured into building the massive flying removal van, And although it could only carry about as much weight as a Hercules, it could contain vast, oversized loads.
It really is an odd machine, and the whole concept came about in a rather peculiar way too. There was no time to design a new aircraft from scratch, so what they did was they took an existing aircraft, the Boeing Stratocruiser, and massively increased the size of the fuselage. I think the word Mekong comes to mind. Go on, Dan Dare, any day, mate. But you get the idea. Guppy man.
What's amazing is the Super Guppy actually flew, and it made its first flight in August 1965. The Super Guppy worked so well that Airbus bought 4 of their own to shift huge bits of their passenger planes around Europe.
However, by the 1990s, they were getting a little bit worn out, and one of them ended up here at Bruntingthorpe.
It's been standing here mothballed since 1996. Today, I've got special permission to go aboard.
In we go. Well, here I am in the absolutely vast fuselage of the Super Guppy. Incredible. I mean, from the outside it looks big. Inside it actually feels a lot bigger. I've got to keep reminding myself that I'm in an aircraft and not in an aircraft hangar. Great place for a party, though.
It's all very well having loads of space, but you have to be able to get something inside. To load up, the Super Guppy was designed to split in two, with the nose section hinging round. The cargo was then rolled in and the aeroplane closed up around it.
This is the join which literally divides the fuselage into 2 sections. When the front section opens, it swings out this way, pivoting on a massive hinge up there.
These engineers have come to see if they can open up the Guppy. It hasn't moved for years though, and the machinery's a bit seized up, so no one knows if this will work. Here goes. And it's open. Slowly but surely. Now that's what I call a nose job. Oh, it's packed up. Now, you're not going to get a moon rocket through that gap, but at least we've let some daylight in again. The Super Guppy wasn't the only aircraft to load up through its nose. Enter the Antonov 225, the colossus of cargo planes.
Here I am, airside at Cologne Airport, and that is the Antonov 225, the biggest plane in the world. The only Antonov 225. How cool is that?
Rather like the Super Guppy in America, this monster aircraft was designed to help with a space program. Except this one was built to carry the Soviet space shuttle on its back. These days, though, it flies civilian missions.
In this container is production line equipment for making computer screens. It's heavy, it's got to reach its destination fast, and that's why it's going by air.
In just a few hours, this vast cargo will be taking a 7,000-mile journey to Taiwan. The fuel bill alone will be over £80,000. To compare the Antonov's size to the first airmail planes is like comparing a juggernaut to a shopping trolley. It's 84 meters long and over 18 meters high. But the real top trump fact is the Antonov's lifting power. It can carry 250 tons. That's over 10 times more than a Hercules about 100 times more than a DC-3, and over 1,000 times more than an early biplane. It's the equivalent of about 20 London buses filled with passengers.
The plane can carry so much because of these whopping wings. They span a massive 88.4 metres. That's wider than a football pitch. And to get the whole lot through the air, there are 6 of these gigantic jet engines, each the size of a transit van.
They're more powerful than the engines on Concorde, and together they produce over 300,000 pounds of thrust. That's what you need to get all that weight into the air. And when it comes down, it needs some serious landing gear.
Yeah, a lot of wheels. 32 in total, 4 at the nose, and 7 double wheel sets on either side of the fuselage. A lot of rubber. Once inside the hold, the only thing that gives the game away are the curved walls. Otherwise, it's just a giant flying warehouse. It's over 6 metres wide, over 4 metres high, and at 43.3 metres long, it's longer than the Wright brothers' first flight.
Loading is a massive operation, but if the cargo isn't positioned precisely, the plane won't be balanced in flight, making it a nightmare to control.
So here I am in the cockpit of the aircraft. It's like being halfway up a tower block. Everything about it is immense. I'm sitting in the captain's seat. First officer sits over there. We have a navigator here. We have a radio operator as well, and 2 flight engineers. You could really sense the Ukrainian origins of this aircraft. It's not fly-by-wire. It's all manual, analog, pretty old-fashioned. It's not exactly state-of-the-art.
12 hours after loading started, and the Antonov is almost ready to fly.
This is it, the Antonov 225, the biggest plane in the world, 500 tons of it now. It's taxiing. One question remains, can it really get off the ground? That is massive.